Welcome. Welcome in to the coaching circle. Welcome all. We're really, really glad to have you here. We do this every week and we are coaches. We are coaches who hang around, have a conversation over a cup of tea, and we welcome you in. Today we're talking about being the villain in someone else's life. And we're saying it's okay to be the villain. Dang, 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 dang. Then we started off with what is the villain? What are we talking about? Who wants to take us with that?
Yeah, so to be the villain in someone else's life means not being scared to take the role that I mean, if we were brought up as a nice girl, we don't like to take. Like I had this big example recently. It was a friendship breakup. So we had a close friend. We were really close, and we had a lot in common, and we was really going into depth. But then when we're not like living in the same space, she would just ghost me for a month. If I send a message, I was lucky to get an answer 10 days later, and I felt so betrayed. I felt so stupid, and I wanted to talk to her, but how could I? I couldn't reach her. So eventually, I saw her again, and I told her that doesn't work for me. That I want zero contact for 3 months, and she was very shocked. And yeah, I grieve this friendship sometimes, but I also still have anger. But I'm also having a lot of relief. The relief is the best part and the biggest part. Yeah. So that was the role of a villain, but it was important to do because I'm better now, not having this half thing, unreliable thing in my life. Yeah. And then the like 2 days after I did that, I got tested. A friend of mine, we went on a hike and then we were supposed to meet in a restaurant. And then I call him, doesn't call, no sign, doesn't answer the phone. That was not a reason to kick someone out of my life, but I had to also tell him then don't. The next day I spend alone. I don't need unreliability. Let's just. I need my space for the next week or so. So the good thing about being the villain in that sense is that if we do it with one person, it really set up my standards. You have to do it with other people as well. That's just two standards then, and it's better to be the villain than to be not telling the truth.
I like how you started it off with a good girl comparison because I'm always all about the good girl and the good girl this, the good girl that. And yes, the villain just sounds like a bad word, a dirty word in my mouth. Who wants to be the villain? In all the cartoons we watched, the villain was always the bad guy. So of course, I do not want to be Voldemort. I want to be Harry Potter. So from that perspective, what we're saying is that because having been a good girl for such a long time, I do feel a certain kind of way if I am away from my friends. I if I do feel that I've set up a boundary, and I do now set up boundaries, and I also give my own example. With a friend of mine, well, I realized that the relationship wasn't really going in a way that I felt benefited me. The relationship was rather one sided. And because of that, I just let it taper away. I didn't really need to step in as such. But then the test, like you said, the tests that come to me are every once in a while, I want to reach out and call. I want to reach out and call because I miss the friendship. The friendship was fun. But I do also have to stand up for myself and tell myself, you have do you believe in your boundaries? Do you believe that you are worthy of a friendship that is a little more balanced? And if you do, then seek it out. The world is full of people. I do not have to rely on this one situation. I can go out and seek other friends.
To kind of go off what you said, Shiro, when you were saying about you missing the friendship, I look at it like, do I miss and reminisce the friendship, but is it worth the inconsistency of that friend? And so it usually doesn't because I believe that we teach people how to treat us. And sometimes when we have these boundaries in place, all of a sudden, like we're villains. But if it's okay to be looked at as a villain if you're firm in being direct and assertive with your boundaries. And I could talk about a experience of mine. I feel like since I've leveled up my friendships, I am very, very mindful and intentional of, how I spend my time with the people around me. They tend to be reliable, consistent people. So if I ever making new friends, I can spot it real quick if they're not of the same caliber. And there is a friend that I had recently had, you know, made, and I thought we were friends. And this other girl had messaged me and her and wanted to hang out. And she took forever to respond. And I get everyone has busy schedules. She had to rearrange her schedule to like for another day. And she took over 2 days she actually didn't respond back to that group chat. And it was already past the event where she had invited us to. And I was like, wow, that's kind of rude of you not to reply to her at all. And she used the excuse of her work schedule being inconsistent. And, you know, that's why she couldn't get back. I'm like, for 2 days though, you couldn't say that you had a busy schedule that you didn't know. Like you still could have communicated that, because otherwise it's giving low effort and disrespectful other people's time. And because I called her out on her behavior, you know, I don't think she liked that. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to um, tiptoe around things. Like, I'm going to call it out for what it is because I respect people on their time. I'm going to get back to them. Or if I can't make it to something, I'm going to communicate that. So when I don't see that from certain people, it's just like you're kind of giving low effort vibes here, and I'm not for it, because when somebody is disrespectful of my time and my energy, they don't have any room in my life. I find it repulsive. Like, I'm like, ew, gross. I have the best people in my life and you're just not reaching it. You're not of the same caliber, and it's okay, but we're just not in alignment, and that's fine. So in order for you to be in my life, you have to meet these requirements of being reliable, of being consistent, because my best girlfriends, they have those qualities, and I have it for them too.
Yeah, just following on from what Alex said as well. And apologies, there might be a bit of a delay again. I'm getting a bit of a delay sometimes, so if I'm talking over anyone, sorry. But yeah, I think it's about just being really sure of yourself and sure of your values and of your boundaries, and that way it's easy to put those boundaries in place then and tell somebody if bring it to their attention if they've done something that's crossed your boundary. So yeah, just being confident and knowing that it's okay to set your boundary, and it's not your responsibility as to how they're going to act when you say what you've got to say. So I know, like, sometimes people can feel judged when you say your boundary, but it's not up to you to control their reaction or to be treading on eggshells around them. So it's just about, just being centered in yourself and not trying to control the outcome.
And I do think like one key quality in all my friendships is they're consistently doing like the inner work. They're wanting to be a better version of themselves. So me calling them out on something that is not friendship worthy, they usually would thank me. Thank you for telling me that. However, when I approached her regarding her behavior, she used her inconsistent work schedule as an excuse to be not communicative or lack of communication. So rather than attempt to be a better friend and be like, thank you for telling me, I want to be a better friend. How can I do that better? She got defensive and used that as an excuse rather than leveling up to be a better friend. And that's like a key difference versus somebody that's doing the inner work versus somebody that isn't.
Yeah, I want to give an example also on that, being on the other side. Because if we're the villain, we are helping the people that want to grow. So I think this happened
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago when I was still a completely different person. I was in a retreat and we could get healings we had to sign up for, and then they choose a couple of people. And I was not chosen. And I was so hurt. I was like in the victim. And then this lady says to me, yeah, she says, you're being a victim. And I was completely shocked because I didn't see it that way. I felt I was in so much pain and they didn't see that. But then later on, a couple hours later, I was thinking about it and I realized, yes, I'm actually in the victim. This behavior is not. So it helped me. And actually, like a couple months later, I was talking with a person because I was in a really bad situation. Like, as I said, at that time, I was still very lost. I was using substances. I was in like, had a crush on the wrong person. And she told me, don't give your power away. And that also, at that time, I was not used to that concept. So it really helped me. So those are two examples that really helped me a lot 5 years ago. It's like the power, giving your power to things. I use it regularly now. And so that's where being the villain or being direct and saying the things has helped me a lot. So if with that person, with the right people, we help them. And that's also how we know if it can be an interesting friendship or if it's like a outer layer or no friendship.
Yeah, I think it says more about, doesn't it, the person that you've confronted. It says more about them, how they're going to react to you. So if you're now the villain in their story because you've just stated a boundary and you've not said anything wrong, you've not insulted them, you just clearly stated, oh, this steps over my boundary, then it says more about them than it does about you. And at that point, you've got to let go of control, haven't you, and say, well, it's okay then. If you think I'm the villain, that's fine. That's your prerogative. You can think whatever you like. And you've just got to stick with your own boundaries then.
I wanted to also mention too that the story with this person, it wasn't like this one time of incident. It was several different behaviors that to me added up to like a scarcity mindset or it, other examples I can think of with her specifically was when I was like actively dating somebody and going on a date with them and wanting to like let her know. She didn't even say like, "Oh, it's exciting. I hope everything goes well." She wasn't even excited for me. And it took her over a week to reply and been like, "Oh, so did you end up going?" Like, oh, over a week? Like, I'm telling you something that's exciting. Like, if you're a friend of mine, you should be, I don't know, celebratory in the fun things that are happening for me. Another example that wasn't even about me that I was sharing a highlight about one of my other friends that recently got into a relationship. And I had told her, I was like, hey, so and so just recently got in a relationship. Like, how exciting. I'm so happy for them. This guy is like treating her really well. She's like, oh, like, I don't really want to hear that. Like, it's just making me feel really down, like, about my life and not like what I'm experiencing. And I was like, huh, if anything, that should have been inspiration for you to like see that that's possible for you as well. But she took it like there's no good men out here. And I'm like, well, in order for you to attract better men, you need to also conduct yourself differently. And she had asked for my opinion on this event and what to wear, and had asked me, oh, what about this dress? And it was, in my opinion, way too revealing. And it was just giving a different message from somebody who would take her more seriously. And she just ended up attracting like the crusty guys. And these are the same type of guys that don't want anything to do with her later because she's leading with her tatas instead of her personality, her great conversations and things like that. And I do think it's first impressions are everything. And I'm like, well, why did you ask me about my opinion on what to wear if you weren't going to actually, you know, take my opinion to heart and you're just going to do whatever you want to do? So I felt like my insight, it just went in one ear and out the other. And I'm like, she's not valuing what I'm saying. She's not valuing my time. So all these things consistently was like, you know what? We're just not a match. You're not of a high caliber friendship that's doing the inner work, that's trying to better themselves. I use my friendships as inspiration to continue to grow. Their success, I find it inspirational. Like that doesn't mean that I can't succeed. In fact, it's like I'm excited for them and I'm like, what can I do to also level up as well? Rather than feeling envious or this weird competition. Like I got that vibe from her. I'm like, I don't normally experience this. So when it did happen, I was like, that's unusual. That's a red flag. So consistently, these qualities were giving me this is not somebody I feel safe to be myself around and can't be vulnerable enough because it seems like they're not going to celebrate in my successes, but also secretly hope for my downfall.
Yeah, that's very unsafe. It is so important who we surround ourselves with, because the 5 people we spend the most time with influence us the most. So if we're around people we don't trust, we can't trust, and there's like they hope the worst for us, we're not deeply feeling safe. And people who, or especially like people who cheat in relationships, they might also cheat us. So let's be very careful. If they cheat in one area in their life, they might also cheat in others. So do not have those people around. Yeah, even if, sometimes we think, oh, they never do that to me. No, see, that's sadly that's going to happen at some point. So be very, very careful with that.
Or they might like try to hit on your significant other when you're
Ex-
not there. So it's
exactly.
like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Your character bleeds into all areas of your life. So if you're doing that to somebody that you love and you're cheating on them, like what makes you think you're not going to treat your friend in a not so good way? You know, like you're going to be exhibiting that same toxic negative behavior with your friends as well and hurting them just as much. And it's like, ooh, red flag. And my friends, the ones that are in relationships, they're in really good ones. So I think it's like your friendships are going to be like the foundations for your romantic relationships and vice versa. Like you tend to have strong friendships and strong relationships, or you have that same expectation. Your friendships level up your expectations of what you're looking for in romantic relationships. And yeah, it's just like that's that set of standards. If you're not feeling that you have consistent, reliable friendships, it's hard for you to believe that you can have that in a romantic partner too.
I have a question. How to draw the line? So you've noticed a characteristic in a friend. How do you draw the line between categorizing it for yourself and determining whether or not it's good for you and judging them? How do
Well,
you walk that fine line in between to because judging then takes you also to a lower vibe.
right.
That's not what we want to do.
Am I
So how do you do
judging?
that?
Am I judging or merely
Exactly.
observing
Exactly.
what it is for what it is?
Yes.
And did I have the conversation with them? I did. How did they respond? Did they get defensive or did they appreciate me communicating with them? Or are they making the attempt to change? Yes or no? And the people like around me, if I want to talk to them about the situation, they usually are on the same page with me because they're also doing the inner work. If we have a difference in opinion, I'm likely to hear it because I'm not like, oh, you have to be on my side and you have to agree with me. I also want to make sure I'm reading the situation clearly before making that judgment call. I don't make things out of an emotional decision. It's like a logical thing. And I also trust the people around me, been like, hey, I'm experiencing this. What are your thoughts? What do you think I should do? And it usually confirms what I was planning to do anyway.
Yeah, like for example, in my real estate course, there was a lady who was hitting on married men. So of course we had a few laughs together and it was like a pleasant person, but I would not meet that person like outside of the course because it's just not where I want to be. Um, and it is cheating. Yeah. And for example, we with you ladies here, our constant talks on standards and things that encourage me to set the boundaries with that friend I talked about at the beginning. So if I would not have this group and the bigger low print group and other people who have standards, who stand for it, I don't know if I would have done that. And now I like myself so much better about it. So they can really see that things rub off on you. And in like years ago, when I was lost and I didn't have good friends, craziness was always happening. I really didn't like that. It is very unsettling. And friends, a person I thought was a friend would suddenly turn on me and tell my other friends I was a bad person. Then they contacted me and let me know. No, we don't want any of that in our life. But that has happened for me in the past. Now it's very different. And it's also with starting our business, like for the way we are in our friendships is going to define how we are in our relationship, as you just said, Alex, but also who the people we will have with our business. And I think that's places where we need to have real trust. It is very important. So it's a foundation, it's a peace of the heart, peace for the nervous system, just to feel safe and good in your life. That's what we need.
Great.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to your question, Shira, about not like getting into the judgment thing, because I've just recently sort of come to this conclusion of I'm going to set boundaries and it's going to be okay if I'm the villain in other people's stories, and I have become the villain in other people's stories. But then I have to just kind of step back from it and not get into that, oh, well, they're like so far behind and like their reactions like really bad and everything. I've just had to say to myself, that's just they can have that reaction and that's up to them, and that's just kind of like where they're at, and stop myself from getting into that thing of judging them and being like, oh, well, they're a bad person, I'm like the good person, blah blah blah. So yeah, I think that's really, really important, and because it can be a trap you can fall into, I think, can't it, if when you're like doing the inner work and setting the boundaries and other people are not. But it's just, that's just where they're at, and I was there at some point as well, the same place. So.
I want to talk real
Absolutely.
quick. Sorry, as soon as you were saying something, Nikki, it like sparked something in my head that there are some consequences to having these people in our lives that are kind of like of low vibe, because it starts to eat away at your confidence,
Yeah.
your self-worth, your self-esteem, because you think like, oh, everyone treats me like this and it's okay. Once you start letting one person treat you that way, you start letting other people treat you that way. So it's important to nip that in the butt real quick and to still hang out with people and surround yourself with people of high quality and high character, to where they consistently hold themselves accountable for how they're treating you and vice versa, and you treating them. It's a respect thing. So like keeping somebody like this around has negative effects on our self-esteem, our confidence, and what we think we deserve and what we're worthy of. So we may think we're being nice by keeping them around and we don't want to be a bad person, but we do have to be a villain at the end of the day, because we cannot be our best selves if we continue to allow this behavior and accepting this behavior from other people. Me dimming down my light doesn't serve anybody. I need to shine bright, and the people around me, they shine bright too. It makes me want to shine brighter. They want to shine brighter. I should not have to dim my light to keep others comfortable and to keep them in my life. They
Yeah.
either are going to meet me where I'm at, but I'm not going to stoop down to the level to meet them where they're at any longer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's enough light for all of us,
Yeah.
and then some. And also, I want to address this. If it's family members, it's also okay to put them on an outer layer of our life, or to cut the contact. Sometimes it's necessary. I have a very judgy family, So I cut my whole family off I blocked my whole family on social media so that I have a free place to talk, and it feels very good. Even though it felt weird at sometimes, because some of the people are really nice, and if they would not be my family, we would actually be fine. But because then if I sell something to one person, they tell to another, and boom, the whole pack knows, and that's extremely suffocating for me. And so it's just better that way.
There's this toxic trait that will like just match their energy. No. Like they're like, oh, if they don't text back, like you don't like respond back for days, or like if they treat you badly, you treat them worse. And I'm like, that's literally like
Dragging
no, like rise above. Like
yeah.
that's
That's
making
sinking
you
down to their level.
exactly because
We
they'd
don't
be
do.
like, I'm just gonna match their energy.
Mm.
You're just as cruddy as they are. Don't let that happen. Like rise above, like do better. And like if somebody is making you act like that, like or making you want to think to act like that, you really haven't had the self-awareness or inner work to really been like, this isn't serving me. So I think it's something where this kind of going around, I think, where it's like, oh, just match their energy. I'm like, no, like in that case, it's toxic. That's not helping anybody, and you're literally a reflection of them by doing the exact same thing that they're doing to you. Like rise above, move on, and find better aligned people that you don't have to like lessen yourself for.
And if you think, oh, if I let them go, then I have no one, then it's okay to have no one.
Yeah.
It's You have to let the bad people go so that new people can come. If you think I wait till I have good people till I release the bad ones, that's not how it works. You have to let them go. And yeah, I'm in a pretty solitary phase, but that's okay. I'd rather, like we said, one friend, I'd rather have no communication that I know of than hoping in the back of my mind somewhere that there will be communication again. No, 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 no. I like to have things clear. And it was a very good example, Alex. That is exactly how you go down to their level, and that is very cautious not to be.
And just going back to what you were saying, Alex, about like you're not doing them any favors by not stating your boundary, because like you were saying, like if you just be nice to them and keep them in your life, then they're going to drag you down. But also it's not helping them either, because if you just go along with it, you're enabling their behavior, aren't you? So it's like you really are doing them a favor by stating your boundary. And eventually, maybe not straight away, but if they've done something at work like a few years down the line or something, then they might realize, oh yeah, hang on a minute, I did behave not as well as I could have then. And it actually helps, I think, if you are honest and authentic with other people, to help to
Yeah.
bring them as well.
Absolutely. And luckily, I had friends that were like, I don't know, she doesn't seem like a good influence. You might want to cut her off. And I was like, well, how do I end a friendship? That's like kind of weird, you know? Like, how do you really do that? We're not friends anymore. You know, it's just like, seems kind of, I was like, well, I think I should probably say something because I'm not a fan of ghosting. I think that's emotionally immature, childish, and gross and disgusting behavior. So I'm going to I wanted to have that conversation or at least address it. So then that way I could see her response. So it's like, oh, does she have the willingness and the desire to be a better friend? Or is she gonna use it like as an excuse to like not get better and not want to be a better friend or use something else externally, not to look at herself to do the inner work. So it gave me some more insight and gave me more of a relief that based on her response that yeah, I made the right decision because at least I confronted her about it and I addressed it with her versus just cutting her off completely, blocking her, never saying anything because I think that's the mature thing to do. You give someone opportunity to address something and their response is say everything about themselves.
Yeah, I
You
have a
mentioned
good
ghosting.
example. What can happen if you don't cut a person out? So I was working in this unconventional recovery place, and it's a very small group of facilitators, and then a small group of people. So it's a small group, and everybody is contact with everybody. And the person who was in charge of a couple of people, including me, was a very toxic person who did not do inner work, who did not do the stuff she preached, unfair, like, and because she was constantly in my life trying to cover things up and not be direct, and I was in a bad state, and it all came out. I had a lash and nail appointment, and granted, the ladies came like late, they didn't have all their stuff, a few things went wrong. But I started screaming at some point. I had a completely overreaction. I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And then a little bit later, I realized, wow, that's her. That's a toxic lady who's constantly in my face. So I was becoming a crazy, out of control person because I had a really toxic person constantly in my mind. I had to constantly fight against her unfairness. And that is what happens. Thank God, over the Christmas time, we got another person. The situation resolved and got much better. But that was a clear example of what can happen. I became a person I didn't like because of the constant toxicity. Careful there.
There's been so many little topics that I'm wondering which one to jump onto. All of you have said so many interesting things, but I'll jump onto this one that you just raised, Gubi, the inner critic. So we have parts within us. So you're yourself, and then you have different parts that are within you. And one of it is this voice. So the example you've just given, you were probably speaking to those, the ladies, the nails and the lash appointment ladies, in exactly the same way that this person would speak to you. So you internalize her voice in a way that it sounds like it is you. And this happens, I mean, I hear my inner critic, and I don't always recognize them because it is my voice. It is me complaining about this, that, and the other. And until I take a pause and realize that this form of criticism, this form of bile, this level of energy towards insignificant things. I had a video recently when I mentioned how I had I had road rage while seated on a bus. I was not driving, but still I was looking at the other cars and thinking, and that's when I realized that yes, it is possible to have this inner critic within us that we don't even recognize. And the lack of communication, I think, is something that will help it grow. If you do have a conflict with someone, which is the example you've just given, then you do not, then you can become much more judgy because you're thinking about them and thinking, look at how they do this, look at how they do that. I don't like it. But in their face, you're very nice and oh, this is great. Oh, don't worry, it doesn't matter. Oh, you're late. That's fine. I could wait. I was fine. So if you do not let it out, you might vent it even against that very person in a completely out of the box kind of way. So I am absolutely on board with this idea of having the conversations, no matter how difficult. You might want to relax first and take a few minutes to breathe, to figure out how you'll phrase it so that you do not attack them, and just go into your body and feel how you're feeling. How does it make you feel when this person does X, Y, Z? And bring out that feeling so that you're not pointing at them and saying, you never. No, it becomes, when this happens, I feel this way. Yeah.
And yeah, you have to be careful with those situations because I was putting myself in a dangerous situation. I really wanted to work in that place because I like working with people that are fresh in recovery. But the way things were managed, I was not okay with. So I was putting myself in an environment, in a work environment, that there's a bunch of things I was not okay with. Yeah, what to do there? It's often work environments come with that type of stuff at some point in our life. Yeah, that's something to be very careful about. And I'm not in that environment anymore. Yeah.
The other thing I'd mention then quickly is ghosting. I was on the other side of ghosting. So maybe a few years ago, I ghosted someone. without really thinking this. It's what you're talking about, Alex. It's this thinking of, you didn't call, so I'll wait a little while and not call. I won't look for you until you look for me. And then, no one was looking for anyone else. And at some point I came to realize, hold on, wait. I've, I've ghosted him. I actually had to Google, I had to go online and check for definitions of ghosting to understand that what I was doing was actually ghosting. Then I felt, oh, this is really, really bad. Because it was a relationship. He had texted me, then I thought that he should have texted more, or he should have done something that was in my head that I hadn't told him about, and then decided I shall not answer. So when I sat down, at the time I had already started doing some inner work. So that is why I went out to look at, the definition of ghosting. What is ghosting? Because I didn't think what I had done was ghosting. This is something everyone does. You sit pretty and wait for someone to look for you. And ideally, normal people should have looked for you. Because that is what I thought in my head. So when I realized that this is the situation, then I put myself in his shoes and I thought, wow, this is such a mean, he must really feel really, really, really bad. So I came up with the biggest apology I've ever come up with. I think I've never in all my life had an apology that was real. It was a real apology that I was not trying to make excuses. I wasn't trying to see, but you should have, you could, no, no, no. It was just, this is what happened. I realized that I hurt you. This was a bad thing to do. And just completely owning up to it. It did not help the relationship, no. But I felt better. I felt like a responsible adult. I felt that I realized I had done something wrong and was taking up the space to take charge for it, take responsibility. I was being authentic. I was saying, I am sorry. I am really sorry. This is not what I meant to do. And it felt nice.
So to touch upon that too, Shiro, I congratulate you for even acknowledging that and even take the courage to apologize to somebody. You'd be surprised that a lot of people find that like their egos are too big to apologize to people. And just because they're just they're not in the right headspace. And you really have to think about if I'm entering into a relationship, I'm not willing to put my pride aside to communicate or apology to somebody. Am I really going into a relationship for good reasons? So I applaud you for going back and doing the right thing because we all make mistakes. We're not perfect, and it's okay. Sometimes we have these realizations later. But I wanted to know for me over here, they were like, "Oh, cut her off," and I mean, just like never talk to her again. Like, do I just ghost her? Like, I had a different like a motive because I was like, I don't think I want contact with this person ever again. So let me address it, and so then therefore they can give me like a reason for what they were doing or to see if we can mend things. So I had a different approach to that, but from your angle, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like as though you were approaching it from a way of playing games a bit. It's like, how much does he like me?
Exactly.
Like he needs to call me 10 times instead of 9 times, on the 10th time I was gonna answer. You know what I mean? Something like that. So
Absolutely.
I understand because I feel like when we were like younger and whatnot, we kind of like to push and pull games. Like, how much does he really like me? Like, what's the length he's willing to go? Nah, girl, that's toxic. We've all grown up from that. So it's like, you know, um, yeah, and I think that kind of shows like our maturity levels at the time where we're just kind of like playing like around or playing games actually with people's feelings, and that's kind of not fun. But when we're going at things more intentionally in the dating realm, like we can spot those toxic traits in ourselves or in others really quickly, and we're like, oh, that person's clearly just not really in the headspace to really want to have anything serious because they're kind of messing with my head a bit, and somebody that's good for you won't do that. But like I said, I'm glad that you kind of you recognize like how that was hurtful for him and you like apologize because not a lot of people would. So, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Just to kind of play devil's advocate, is there ever a situation you think where ghosting might be okay? Like it might be kind of a thing to do. I mean, Like, what if somebody is like super, super toxic and it's impossible? And you think, oh, well, the right thing to do is to have a conversation with them and tell them a boundary and try and work through it. But what if you know that that person is just not at that stage? They're not going to be able to listen.
Then you have to block them. I had a friend like that. Well, she's not a friend. She became weird and toxic and jealous and like really strange. I'm a breathwork facilitator. Well, no, I wasn't at the time, but she was one. I don't know. She was jealous. She became really personal and disgusting, and it was 3 years ago. I let it go too long, but eventually I was like, I just wrote it. I think you're disgusting, and I blocked her. But I had to watch it because we were connecting on like 5 places, like Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, and I forgot one, and I got an evil message there. Boom, I had to block that too. Yeah, if it's a person who's disgusting, you can write them, you're disgusting. I wouldn't go into a long thing. You just write them, oh, I don't need toxicity, or you write nothing and you block everywhere. And also I had with other people I knew, it was the same. So usually a really disturbed toxic person is maybe it's more escape. It's just towards you, then it's an obsession towards you. In this case, thank God it was not. He was toxic about other people as well. They had blocked her too. So I think if there's no possibility of understanding, that's what you need to do nowadays. Block everywhere.
I do think some people don't have the capacity nor the willingness to change. So sometimes if you do attempt to have those conversations, it's like they're defensive, they're making excuses, they're blaming something or someone else outside of them for their behavior. They're not taking accountability. Like there's certain ways on how they react that show you like based on previous behaviors too. Like you already know that they're not willing to nor have the capability to want to change. So I mean, then again, why would you have somebody like that in your life for that long, I would say, right? Like if it's somebody new, like that person was for me, I was willing to have that conversation because I was like, well, I don't know her that long, but it's worth having a conversation. But I've only kind of really done that, I think, like once ever, because I realized while I was going through my inner work journey that I realized that some of the people that I had around me were very toxic, were very negative, were very mean. And as I was trying to grow and have more better conversations with people, they were not liking that I wasn't just allowing toxicity like that in my life or toxic conversations. That person thrived on drama. They thrived on talking negatively about somebody. That's like any negative experience or any downfall that they have was like gossip, and it was juice to her, and it was like wanting to talk to me about it, and I kind of wanted to repel and go in a different direction and like not even hang out with her because I was so turned off about just like when they do that to you about other people, they're going to do it about you to other people too. So it was a big red flag to me. I was like, how did I not see this? Like, how did I not see that this person was who they were? And I didn't notice until I was living with that person where I was like, she's really toxic. Like, this is how she is. She's like always nosing, getting everyone's business. And I was like, I don't want to be around this anymore. So I like removed myself as much as I could. And eventually, like, she wanted to talk badly about me because I didn't want to hang out with her anymore. But I was trying to always sway the conversation in a more positive light or not engage in the negativity in her conversations. And I don't know, she found some way to make it about herself and point the blame at me as to why I didn't want to be her friend anymore. And it's like, sometimes we got to look at ourselves here. And then she also, this is where I think is a little bit extreme. I thought was very toxic behavior, like stalking people's social medias, wondering what they're doing, wondering where they're at, like who they're with, like stalking their locations. I'm like, wow, you're really like obsessed about what other people are doing and their time and their attention. Like maybe put that energy back on yourself and on your own life and make your life fun and creative and, you know, adventurous because you're spending too much time finding chaos and drama outside of you. Like it was actively looking for it. Um, in that case, I felt like she was kind of like a covert narcissist, always blaming other people and being in a victim mindset. And I hardly use narcissists, but I was like, dang, that was an example like of somebody that's a narcissist and always blaming other people in the negative victim mindset. And I was like, there's no way. Like I can't have a conversation with her. I attempted to, and she tried to gaslight me and things like that. And I was like, okay, no, this isn't happening. So long story short, in some cases it is needed.
I think if they're going to turn it around on you and gaslight you, and you know that that's a behaviour that they have,
Yeah.
then say, well, it isn't.
Yeah, I'm trying to have a conversation with you. Why, like, I don't know. I don't like being manipulated. Like, I'm being honest and like I'm trying to talk about something, and I don't know. It's just these undercut type of comments and gaslighting. You really start to question yourself a bit. I'm like, whoa. I'm not letting this person get to me like that. My friends of caliber, like my good friends, don't do this to me. But then again, at the time, maybe I didn't have maybe the best of friends. So now that I do, I see it for what it was, and it was super toxic. She was a narcissist, and I was like, like narcissists want to control other people. So once she stopped feeling like she could control me, she made me a victim, or not. She made me a problem, and then started to tell other people like I was a problem to her, and then like trying to kind of like gain momentum against me or something. I was like, whoa, like can everyone think for themselves here and read the situation? Like she wants to control other people's narrative about her and other people, and it's like, that's like, no, I want to be the judgment of it myself. And because I could no longer be controlled, and I started to think for myself, was when she didn't like me anymore and we no longer aligned. And I'm like, okay, I can't keep you as a friend because I'm trying to do the inner work here and you're not. I'm not someone you can control. I'm out. Peace.
And I do think with toxic people, it's about finding your power, as you said, about finding your power. Because if you're able to move away from like the gaslighting, this uncertainty about yourself, what's going on, what's happening, if you find your own power, you become less interesting to them because they are unable to drain energy from you. So with them, depending on who they are, even just people who have a low self-esteem, they can be very dangerous. They can come out of their way to mess things up for you. So with some of these people, once you find your own power, it's learning how to sidestep them. So not being in their face, then they're no longer interested in you, because it could be in different places. It could be at work. It could be in a place that you have to continue going to socially even. So from that perspective, maybe it's not just possible to block them, but to gain your own power, stand firmly within yourself, and have like this an energetic cocoon that you sit in whenever you're around them. Then you stop being fair game. You're no longer interesting because they don't get anything out of you. They need to go out and find someone else whose energy they can drain.
Yeah, and like being okay with not being in control, I think, as well, because there's certain people, like you were saying, that will try and control the narrative and turn other people against you. And then at the end of the day, you just gotta let it go, because if they can't think for themselves, if they can't have their own opinion and they're going to listen to that person, that's up to them, isn't it? I think eventually things do, probably the truth does come out. I've been in a situation, I don't want to go into it too deeply, but it involves like family members where one side of the family was turned against me, kind of thing. But now all of the truth has come out, and some of these people are now sorry and trying to make amends. But it's quite a few years after the fact. But it does go to show that things do come out eventually. The truth does come out, and as long as you stand firm in your own conviction and you, like you were saying, in your own confidence, then that's all you can do, isn't it? And just let your ego go and not try and control other people's like opinions, because at the end of the day, you can't. People are going to think what they want to think, aren't they? At the end of the day.
Yeah. And how about not trying to save everybody? So, taking back the good girl perspective of things, this idea that now that I feel that this is inner work, let's take inner work as an example. I've been going through inner work. Inner work I find is great. I've been working on myself. I feel better. I think that this is something that all my friends should do. Then proposing it to your friends and they're not interested. How to understand that it is not your responsibility. In fact, it's not you. That is still part of the good girl chain, this trying to improve other people. Let people be themselves. You're not their god. Let them be who they are. If they want to do inner work, great. If they find another avenue they prefer to take that they feel is better for them, great, let them. But if you feel that whatever avenue they've taken doesn't gel with the avenue you've taken, then it's okay to go separate ways.
You shine by your being, you shine by your example, and that might stimulate them to try to do what you do. The best thing is if people come to you and ask, what have you done? You've changed. That is what we are. I mean, we don't do it for other people, but that is ideal. We know because it's very annoying trying to push our ideas down other people's throats. It's like the bad reputation of the vegans. So try to get other people to, it's like, no, we do not want to go there. Like, let people do their thing, let people take their steps. We don't know where they come from. Yeah. So it's something I just hardly unrecommend to do. Yeah. And I think if you want to do it, it's usually with a personal example. In that situation, I did that, and it helped me. And never, ever say you should be doing this.
Yeah, if you start down that road, like hardly anyone's ever going to take you seriously. They're always going to push back, I think, on if you try and force them, or they think that you're trying to force them. That's like a big no, isn't it?
Yeah. I think those are the points we had for today. Do we do a round of final thoughts? And if I start, what are my final thoughts? My final thoughts will be, for the good girl who found this triggering, take it from...
We are the villains. Just kidding. No. We are the villains in your story. No, I'm just kidding.
Villains in your story. No, take it from the perspective of outside of the head, inside the body. See how your body feels about having difficult conversations with people who you already at some level think are not the best for you, are not there for you. And just play around with it. Maybe take a small step today, a small step tomorrow, and be your own cheerleader. Be in your own corner. Believe that you are deserving of a life that has happy people around you and that you can be happy yourself.
Yeah, I just want to say, don't be scared to be the villain in someone else's story. If they open to growth, it will help them. They will be the villain back to you if it's needed, and you grow a lot more. If they can't handle it, good riddance.
I think somebody that needs to be the villain in someone else's story needs to also be encouraged to be the villain in someone else's story by someone they trust. So it's kind of hard by yourself, and if you're doing this and you're like, oh my gosh, like where did I begin? Am I doing things? Am I acting crazy? Am I being like a bad person? Sometimes talking with someone that you trust, they'll be like, no, you got to set those boundaries, and having that encouragement that you're on the right track and that you're being supported and being a villain in someone else's story is kind of what gives you that confidence to keep doing it and hold that consistency with other people too.
Yeah, and I think it's about being authentic to yourself, like being connected to yourself and your own intuition, and making a mind of what your boundaries are and stating those boundaries. then being okay with being the villain if that's what happens, and sometimes being to be in control, you have to be out of control. You have to let people do what they're going to do, and you stand firm in your convictions.
Truly beautiful. We thank you for joining us today. This is the Coaching Circle, and we say bye-bye until next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.